local food isn't a novel idea, but I do think it's an important one. I grew up on a farm, and I found that my recipes are just simply better when I source my ingredients from someone or somewhere I'm connected to. I'm Ian Knauer, and I love local food, but of all the foods that I love the most, cheese is #1, which is why I'm here at Locust Hollow Sheep Farm. I'm gonna meet up with Julia Inslee, the farmer and cheesemaker. We're gonna talk the science of cheese, the pleasure of cheese, and everything in between. Because I'm gonna be making a smashed feta on toast with a green beans vinaigrette. It's gonna be a really nice complement between the sweetness of the beans and the brininess of that cheese that Julia makes. I'm also gonna pick up a bloomy rind and a pecorino style. So let's do it. Julia, hi.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you for inviting me to the farm.
It's lovely having you here.
Tell me about the animals that you have and the products that you make.
So I have a herd of East Frisian dairy sheep. They are specifically a dairy breed of sheep. There are only a few of them in this country. I have a herd of 13 of them. I'm currently milking 11 ewes. And I make about 15 to 20 varieties of cheese and yogurt with their milk. They also make great ice cream, although I'm not currently selling that.
You just keep all that for yourself?
Yeah, I have a little stash in my freezer. Then I have chickens for eggs, and then there are a couple of alpacas here just for entertainment purposes.
I saw them on the way in. They are funny looking animals.
They are
so that makes
extremely
sense.
odd looking creatures.
Constant, good for making winter soften, seasons only, nature calling, always changing, soon and often.
This is Locust Hollow Sheep Farm. And a brief rundown of the place. My parents bought it in 1977, and it was a shell. And so they worked on it for about 2 decades. What I love about the farming is that it's constantly changing. That there is definitely a seasonality to it. As soon as you get tired of one thing, then the next thing it shifts to the next thing in the next season. What's great about the specific farming that I do, that I have 6 months of milk, is that then I get sort of 6 months downtime as well. I love to cook. I have since I was a kid. Part of the cooking, let's see, it's always been seasonal for one thing, because we're definitely influenced by the vegetable garden and things shift with that. And I think the cheese is sort of the same thing. Like, I incorporate cheese into cooking all the time, and it shifts as like different cheeses are coming out.
We started. Good roots grow in our garden.
Here we are, cozied up in the cheese shack. Me and Julia, we're going to talk about making some cheese. We're going to talk about the transformation that happens between, from the milk to the finished cheese.
Yes.
I'm going to get some feta for my smashed cheese toast with my green bean vinaigrette. We're going to talk about bloomy rind, and we're going to talk about your pecorino style cheese.
Okay.
So, where do we start?
We are going to start with the bloomy rind. So this feta right here in its slab form, and it's got, you can see the salt there on it. Has been sitting in this colander now for about 3 days. Okay. So my feta is a very fresh feta. I only age it for about 4 or 5 days and then serve it.
Spending time out in the fields with Julia at Locust Hollow Farm with her amazing sheep was great, but I'm always happy to be back in the kitchen, which is where it's my wheelhouse. I've got that beautiful feta that she made, salty, briny, delicious stuff. I'm gonna feature it in this recipe. I'm gonna make smashed feta on toast, sourdough toast, with a tangle of green beans vinaigrette on top, featuring some of those beautiful herbs that Nathan brought from Tyne and Toil. So let's get started. First, I'm gonna make pretty thick slices of the sourdough bread, maybe 1/2 inch or so. This dish could easily be a lunch all by itself. Make 4 of those slices. I'm gonna toast them, and then afterwards, I'm gonna rub them with some garlic from Full Circle Farm and some chicken fat from Lindenhof Farm. Of course, classically, you might use olive oil for this, but if you have chicken fat, you should always choose chicken fat. Let's go to the oven. I'm gonna stick these under the broiler. I'm just gonna stick these right on the shelf. They'll take 4 or 5 minutes just to get slightly golden on top. In the meantime, I can do some other prep. I've got a chili pepper here from Full Circle Farm and a shallot as well, some garlic. I'm just gonna get that prep out of the way. When my toast comes out of the oven, I'm gonna rub it with this raw garlic clove. That gives it sort of a sweetness and a pungency because the garlic is raw, but it's not overwhelming. It's just a little bit of garlic to sort of like wake you up. So I'm just gonna peel it, set it to the side, and then the texture of the toast itself will be what grates the garlic. So that's ready for me. Feta and pepper, like black pepper, play really nicely together, but we don't have a black pepper tree here. Instead, we have chili peppers. So that's what I'm gonna use instead. This one, again, is from Full Circle Farm, and they tell me it's very spicy, so I don't think I need a whole lot of it. I'm just gonna give this a fine chop because if it's as spicy as they tell me it is when we were over at the farm, then you don't want a whole lot of it in each bite. Zach and Sammy from Full Circle CSA told me that this one will really make me sweat. And finally, I've got my shallot here. I don't need much of it, probably only half. So I'm gonna trim it up, cut it in half, put my trimmings over the side, peel it, and just give it a fine dice. This shallot is going to be for the vinaigrette. That's all done and waiting for me. Let's check on our toasts. All right, I've got my toast here, just slightly golden, which is exactly what I want. I don't want it to be too crunchy because then it's harder to eat. But what we have here, this golden brown, is just toasted enough that it's gonna help me grate this garlic clove right onto the toast. And that's gonna give it just enough pungency that you realize it's there, but it's not gonna overwhelm anything. Now I'm gonna take some of this beautiful chicken fat and just spread it right on that toast. All right, that's good to go. Now we can focus on smashing our feta. So because Julia dry brines this feta, I want to moisten it up a little bit. I want to lighten it up. And I'm going to use some heavy cream for that. I'm going to whip that cream just to lighten up the feta. I know lightening something with heavy cream sounds like an oxymoron, but it actually really works well. So I've got my heavy cream here. I don't need a whole lot, maybe just a 1/4 cup. And then I'm gonna whisk it until it's just slightly foamy, right? I don't want stiff peaks, I don't even want soft peaks. I just want a little volume here. And the best way to whisk cream and do it fast is not this way. This is what everybody thinks you do. It's this way, back and forth. What we're doing is we're actually creating little waves that capture air. They capture the bubbles in the cream. This will take a minute or 3 to do. But this whisking back and forth like this is a great party trick. All right, so that took maybe 2 minutes, and that's what I'm going for there. Just sort of fluffy, right? It's not even holding a peak. I don't want it to hold a peak. I just want it to supply a little air, like a little cream cloud that's gonna lighten up that feta. I've got my feta. I'm gonna crumble it into this cream. And it's pretty salty, so I don't need to add any salt to this. And then I'm gonna add that chili pepper to this. and that's gonna be the pepper in the recipe. We got that right here. Scoot it right in there. Give this a little smash. Sort of just incorporate all that cream and the feta. So you see what we have here, sort of like a whipped feta situation that we just did by hand. Yeah. All right, we're gonna put that to the side. Now we're gonna blanch our beans. First I need to prep them a little bit. They have little caps on them, so I'm gonna take those off. So we have these beautiful green beans and wax beans from Full Circle CSA. They've got the ends on them, so I just want to take those off. Ooh, beautiful stuff. These are so thin and tender that they're probably only going to take 2, 3, 4 minutes to blanch. And I don't want to cook them until they're sort of like falling apart or limp. I want to just take the raw edge off of them for this vinaigrette. I'm going to blanch these in some boiling salted water on the stovetop. So these beans have stopped cooking. They're nice and cold now. I can take them out of this water and get rid of it. And they are perfectly cooked. They're not crunchy anymore, they're not raw, but they're also not limp. Exactly the way I want them. That really lets the beans shine too. Cooking them the right amount of time puts them up on that pedestal, lets them be exactly what they want to be. Final step in this recipe, I'm gonna make a shallot vinaigrette. I'm gonna cook the shallot for just maybe 30 seconds in a little butter, add some olive oil to it so that when it's room temperature, it's still liquid. Add a little bit of vinegar, season it, and then we can assemble our toast with our smashed feta and our green bean vinaigrette. First, I'm gonna take this skillet, put some butter in it, scrape my shallot right in there, and get that over sort of medium heat. We'll let that cook just so that the raw is out of the shallot. These shallots are ready to go. They've cooked for only about 30 seconds. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil to the pan. Bring it over here and assemble my vinaigrette. All of this can go straight into this bowl. Now for the vinegar part of the vinaigrette, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You can use whatever vinegar you have. I just happen to love apple cider vinegar, and apples grow around here. Add some salt. Then we're going to toss our beans into this vinaigrette. And finally, I'm going to add just a handful of herbs. Nathan brought these beautiful herbs from Tyne and Toil Farm. We've got some cilantro. We've got some parsley. One way to take your cooking to the next level and do it really easily is to add more herbs. The more herbs you add, the more interesting your final dishes are going to be. This is some dill. Here's some beautiful oregano. And I just like whole leaves of these herbs. I really like the more the better. And finally, we have some thyme that has gone to flower, so it's really pretty. Okay, time to assemble our dish. I'm gonna take one of my toasts, take some of that smashed creamy feta. It's got that hot chili in there, go right on top of the toast. Then I'm gonna toss these beans in that vinaigrette with all those herbs. And that gets piled right on top of that smashed feta. There we go. Then that goes onto a plate. And it's time for lunch. The very cool thing about a dish like this is that everything comes from right here and from right now in the season. We've got local sourdough, we've got chicken fat from Lindenhof Farm. We've got that garlic, those shallots, those green beans from Full Circle CSA. We have Nathan's herbs from Tyne and Toil. And finally, we have that beautiful feta cheese from Julia over at Locust Hollow Sheep Farm. Cooking like this Eating like this gives you a real sense of belonging, a sense of place. And being connected to the people who grow this food and being able to let it shine like this makes it really special and really delicious. I flat out love cheese, and I learned so much from Julia today. First of all, that feta can be different anywhere it's made in the world, especially at this farm. This is such a versatile array of cheeses that Julia makes, all from the same milk, from the same sheep, from this land. And that alone makes me feel connected to it, to the land, to the people, to the animals, and I'm about to get connected to this cheese. When visiting local Pennsylvania farms to gather ingredients for my seasonal menu, it's become very clear that it doesn't matter if the ideas that influence my cooking are novel, and they're certainly not convenient. The food just has to be good. So I set out to find some good farms producing good food by good people.